welcome you to another live immigration Q&A. Today, right at the beginning, we're going to start off with answering the feature question here, which is, can foreign workers immigrate to Canada right now in 2020? Well, last week when I did the episode on is Canada, Canada is awesome. It really is. At a federal level, Canada is awesome. But understand that there is a big difference between what's happening at the federal level and what's happening in the provinces. So as I invite all of you guys to join me, and as we give shouts out to the people that are tuning in here now, I want you to understand today I'm going to explain something really important when it comes to coming to Canada to work, because not all provinces are created equally. And much to my horror, Alberta and our dear Minister Jason Kenney just announced a bunch of measures that he intends to restrict immigration in my own province and to restrict the number of foreign workers that can come in. So if you're just joining me, stay tuned. We're going to talk about that. A little bit later, we're also going to open it up to live listener questions. So we'll give a few shout outs to the people that are tuning in here. We've got Ralph, as always. He's my go-to person. Paul, welcome. Great to have you here. We've got Diana out in Sarnia. And we've got here Sonia over in Nigeria. We've got Karen is over in Delhi. Amna says hello to you too. Hussein, and we've got a great group of people that are tuning in. So feel free to put a shout out. I'm going to also give a big shout out to Karen here, who just said as well that Canada has extended the travel ban, which is correct. They have until July 31st, and I'll talk about that in my little introduction part. But today is all about understanding if you can actually immigrate as a foreign worker. And so we're going to talk about that. Then I'm going to jump to the live listener questions. So if you have questions that you want to ask about immigration, literally anything about immigration, that's why I'm here. And as a Canadian immigration lawyer, you'll see this little disclaimer that's going across the bottom of the screen. I want everybody to know that I'm going to provide information to you to answer your questions about immigration. But if it dives into something that would be, I guess, a little bit more specific, then what you're going to do is you're going to hear this, which is the little bell or the little triangle that I'm ringing, that indicates it's a specific question. And for that, it would require legal advice, which in turn requires booking a paid consult. Okay, so let's see who else we have here. Yes, Karen, we're going to talk about that travel ban a little bit. Bushna says, hi, Mark. Omar says, hi. Maji says, hope you're fine. I'm doing really good. Shamal is in Toronto. Fantastic. We've got Leah in Abu Dhabi. Bernard says you should be the governor of Alberta. It's actually that's hilarious. That is so funny. Oh boy. It's the premier actually in Alberta, but I love that. All right. Anand says is in Toronto. Grajesh is Toronto. We've got Mondays over in Nigeria. Chinmoy is India. We've got just a great group of people here. Payal is in India. Hi to you, Roger. Thanks for the shout out. We've got Ryan joining us. We've got Nessa over in Vancouver, and there's just a ton of you guys. I'm not going to be able to give everybody shouts out because those who are watching this as a video are telling me, Mark, get to it. I don't want you doing this. I just want to get to the video content. So I'm looking at making some changes to create a situation that's just a little bit better for people who watch this as videos. You guys know that I love you, and even though I don't give you a shout out, understand I still want to do it. We just have to make better use of the time that we have here. So give a shout out to Alice and let's see here who else we've got here. We've got a bunch. Shout out to Rami as well over in Egypt, near and dear to my heart. One day I'm going to get there. Okay, and then we've got Dan over there in Reading, England. Welcome Dan. Okay guys, it is now time to just transition a little bit and talk about what's happening now in Canada. It's crazy. I never expected it. I really didn't. But let me show you a few things. So I'm going to shift over here and we're going to take a look at my screen. And right off the bat, I want to remind you guys as I go over here to my screen, we have a Twitter account and we have an Instagram account that you guys have got to subscribe to and you've got to follow. Igor's been doing a fantastic job at spinning out the most current information. You can see here, I'm live here on my own screen. I don't know what the delay is there, but you can watch it live. But this is where we're pushing out the most important recent announcements that we hear about immigration. And we know, as you can see right down here, we've also posted that Canadians that are looking to go abroad, countries in Europe, a number of them are now opening the doors up to countries like ours. Why? Because we're doing a great job at navigating through this pandemic. And because of my fellow Canadian citizens and permanent residents and all of you that are in Canada who've been trying to abide by the social distancing, we have really done a good job at leveling this coronavirus spread. So big shout out. And I hope that Canada will do the exact same thing that in this case you can see here. Maybe I can make this a little bit larger so that you guys can see it. Okay, it might be too big when I switch to a different screen. But you can see here in Europe, they're opening the doors to us. And I'm hoping that we, in like manner, will do the same here in Canada. But as was indicated by Karen just a little while ago, you can see right here, this is the new order in council that was just released. And you can search for these on the Government of Canada website, but they're a little bit hard to find. You can see here that Canada is still, if we go down to the effective period, has extended our travel restrictions until July 31st. So for those of you who are applying under the Federal Skilled Worker Program, I can tell you that I do not expect an FSW round, a draw in July. I don't, not until these travel restrictions are lifted. With that being said, those of you who are hovering with very low CEC scores, lower than even 420, you have a very good chance that it could possibly dip down that low. But there's a lot of you there. So I wanted to just give a shout out. So now, a couple other items. Those of you who are trying to access your express entry applications as you're trying to submit your profiles, as you're trying to complete your EAPRs, there is a warning here that I want to give you. As you can see right here on my screen, bad gateway. That's what everybody is getting now when they're trying to access their EAPR or their MyCIC portal. It's the same for the representative portal, my portal. It's the same for the portal that the employers use to register their job offers with the government. Canada has put out an RFP for someone to help create a better system, but this one is down. As lawyers, we have a direct line to the government through our Canadian Bar Association where we notify them that, hey, the portal is down. And this is different than your notification that you send in your own portal that just goes to some generic people who may or may not take it seriously. Well, we have a line where we notify immigration, the head officials, that there's a problem, and there is. So I'm not sure if it's live yet, but many of you are probably experiencing this. Immigration is aware of it, and they're working on it. Obviously, you have to be very, very careful that you're not leaving the submission of any of your applications, whether it's an EAPR, whether it's a work permit, whether it's a study permit, until the last moment, because the system could go down. And if the system goes down, then guess what? You may not be able to meet that deadline. Your ITA could expire and you could be in real trouble. So a little advisory there, a little warning, make sure that you don't leave it to the last minute. We're hoping that this is going to get lifted, but many of you are seeing this message, the bad gateway, when you're trying to lock in. Okay, now, as I transition, as we've got just a ton of awesome people here, Latifa, I've got to give you a shout out here. I hope to immigrate to Canada. Tons of flags, tons of hearts. That's awesome. I want to show you guys something here as I transition. Actually, I'm going to take you off here, Latifa. One of the things that I want to show you guys is that there was a newspaper article that came out last night or yesterday that describes Alberta laying out a plan to spur economic recovery. Now, normally that would be fine. Sure, that's great. But if I type in here, temporary, that's probably all I need. You can see right here that our premier, Jason Kenney, outlined his economic plan on Monday. And it says it all but eliminates the use of temporary foreign workers to ensure Albertans are first in line for jobs. He also goes into the process, and remember, this is Alberta, this is my province, okay? He also indicates that there's realities make it increasingly difficult to justify bringing in foreign workers from outside Canada, either as temporary or under the provincial nominee program, when Canada is experiencing such high levels of unemployment. Now let me flip to this and I'll show you guys. Here is the statistics. We can probably make these a little bit bigger so you can all see. Look at the unemployment rates. So right now, even at its lowest in September of 2015, we have gone up and we've gone down with our unemployment rates. So as we watch this, you can see 6.2 in November 2018. And then, like most places, right before the whole coronavirus thing hit, we were sitting right around 7% because of the downturn in the oil and gas industry. But in Alberta, it has jumped up to 15.5% as of May 2020 unemployment. So what happens? Well, you have premiers that are very conscious about getting reelected, who now are doing everything in their power to try to make sure that Canadians have the first crack at opportunities. Now, when we look at that whole process, there are other provinces that have already tried to do this. And if I go to New Brunswick right here and just pull up some of the articles, you'll remember that New Brunswick started right here on May 18th with the ban on temporary foreign workers. Now, this was because they were trying to protect through coronavirus the spread of the coronavirus, but ultimately, the expectation of that premier, Mr. Higgs, was that New Brunswick residents would fill these jobs working on farms, picking berries. And if you go here, and actually I'll go to my Twitter account and I'm going to switch it, see if I can, and go to my own personal one. And I've done a few tweets here, and let's see if I can actually find it. I'm going to go to my profile, and then I'm going to scroll down here and see if I can find the one that I did about this. So we had I posted a lot during our conference session. Okay, let's see if I can find this. Oh, here it is. Okay, so you can see here. So I posted here. We'll start with the first one. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh boy. Sorry guys, I'm sorry. You're probably getting dizzy with me scrolling. Okay, the reality is, okay, I'm gonna leave it right here. So you can see here on May 22nd. So the first one that came out was May 18th. Okay, I posted a tweet that basically said, seriously, do you really think people from New Brunswick are going to work in the hot sun? I'm going to find this. This is ticking me off now. Why I can't find it. That's a problem when you start to tweet too much, right? So let me go back here. I'm going to find it because I know I did post it. Let's see. Oh, it's because of all of the tweets I did during our national conference. Okay, I know I'll find it here. Okay. This is why you need to better script your actual presentations. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry, guys. I had no idea that I posted so many tweets. Okay, finally, I should be able to get to this here. Oh, and now I can't find it. This is insane. Okay. All right, forget it. Forget it. You guys are probably like, I am so dizzy. Mark, you're insane. The reality is here, guys, what I'm trying to say is that I predicted what was going to happen to this premier when he indicated back here in 2000 and May 18th that they were banning and New Brunswick workers, people, citizens, permanent residents in New Brunswick would fill the positions on the farms. Well, of course it didn't happen. So then 2 days later, he said, well, we may relax it. And then 4 days later, he said, yes, we're going to allow them back in. Now, understand, this wasn't directly related to the coronavirus. It was directly related to the coronavirus, and it wasn't with necessarily the unemployment. But I want to show you guys something here. So if we look at other provinces like Nova Scotia right now, We're seeing one message coming from the federal government saying the borders are open. Minister Mendicino, if you go back and watch the video I did just about a week ago or so, Minister Mendicino has announced that Canada is looking to expand immigration. We're valuing this as a critical part of our growth, our long-term growth. But the provinces are all about what's happening today. And with unemployment rates, like I've shown here in Alberta, being as high as we go all the way up to 15.5%, well, provinces are scrambling to figure out how to keep their the members of their provincial residents happy. And so Minister Kenney has talked about reducing the provincial nominee program by 1/3 to no more than 4,000. So basically they're about 5,500, maybe a little more. He's talking about reducing that to 4,000. And all of these measures, they're knee-jerk. And I wish that the provinces would realize that they can make these decisions, but they're not going to be able to force Canadians to take these positions. So I want to show you something about Minister Kenney. Well, Premier Kenney used to be Minister Kenney. And I researched this. I pulled this up. This was back in June of 2014. So roughly 6 years ago. He was then the Minister over Employment and Social Development Canada. And he, in concert with Chris Alexander, who was then the Immigration Minister. And remember, before that, Premier Kenney was the Immigration Minister. They overhauled the foreign worker program, all with the design to make sure Canadians had the first crack at jobs. And that is exactly what's happening in Alberta right now. Now, we don't know exactly how this is gonna pan out. I know that he is planning on raising the issue you can see here during calls with premiers and to the Prime Minister, particularly when Ottawa took steps to ensure the pandemic did not disrupt access to temporary foreign workers. You can see here, I was not happy that there was a big effort in April to facilitate the entry into Canada of temporary foreign workers, given the near depression levels of unemployment here. So once again, this is quite a knee-jerk reaction. But these premiers are struggling. They are literally struggling to figure out what they're going to do. And so, can you immigrate to Canada as a foreign worker? Well, the short answer, everyone, I'm just going to put it back here. The short answer is yes, you still can. So notwithstanding the fact that the provinces are looking at ways to try to curtail, right at this moment, no decisions have been made with respect to the foreign worker program because the foreign worker program is federal. It's not provincial. Now, certain provinces do have the ability to create occupations that are ineligible for the foreign worker program, but the federal government has to agree with it. And the reality is right now, many of you who are overseas looking to apply for a new work permit to come to Canada, the travel bans that we looked at right here that I shared with you are still in place. And so there are still these restrictions that are in place until July 31st, 2020, and possibly longer that are restricting the ability of foreign workers to come. But I want you to understand the distinction between the federal government and the provincial government and what's motivating them, okay? So the federal government is doing what they can to look at very, very long-term projections in terms of the needs of Canada, whereas the provinces tend to be very knee-jerk. Excuse me, they tend to want to do things at a very micro level that will, have a direct impact on their ability to fix things like, as I flip back here once again, things like this, which is this massive unemployment rate. So the theory that Minister Kenney here, the theory that he's trying to put forward here is that, let's see if we can find a nice picture of Minister Kenney here. I don't even know. I guess we'll have to go back here. That's Kenney anyways. That's 6 years ago. But anyways, the thing that Mr. Kenney is getting at, he's trying to find a way to stimulate the economy. And I don't fault him for what he's trying to do. But the reality is many Canadians don't want to fill the positions that these foreign workers are coming in and filling, whether that's agriculture, whether that's food service. Now, my two sons, one of them has made an application to work hoeing on farms for beets, for different vegetable crops. So he's applied for a job to go work on a farm out in the sun, hoeing, doing all of the things that the minister, the premier in New Brunswick, was hoping New Brunswick citizens, residents would be willing to do, that weren't. And so we'll see how this plays out. But my son, we'll see if he ultimately gets the job to work there in Alberta and the other provinces as they're trying to restrict and create opportunities for Canadians. Well, when Canada has these CERB, these Canada Emergency Response Benefits that are basically giving people money to stay at home, to self-isolate when their jobs when they've been laid off, well, what's the motivation to work if you're getting this handout, right? And I shouldn't say it's a handout because many, many people desperately have needed this to be able to survive through this pandemic. So it's a good thing. But if you're receiving this money, what would be the motivation for you to go work out in the hot sun hoeing weeds in a blueberry farm, right? So that's the reality. So we'll see how this plays out. So foreign workers, the traditional way that you guys come into Canada is with a labor market impact assessment or through one of the other work permit categories under the International Mobility Program. I don't talk a lot about those things because they tend to affect a very narrow segment. And I usually deal directly with the HR managers in global companies who are sending people into Canada. I deal with them all the time. But for you individuals, understand that's usually how it is. Someone offers you a job, you can get a labor market impact assessment, then you come into Canada, and then you work and then transition to permanent residence. Well, with provinces like Alberta likely saying, look, we don't want to have any new labor market impact assessed work permits. We're happy to extend the people that are here, but we don't want new people because we want Canadians to be forced to take those jobs. Well, this is something Kenney's been working on for a long time. He's the one who created the job match, the job bank employer matching system, the eHarmony for employers and employees. He created it. And so he is the one now. We'll see what he does here in the province of Alberta, and we'll see what the other provinces do in terms of the very high unemployment rates and the impact it's going to have on people coming as foreign workers. But understand, those of you who are in Canada right now, get your express entry applications in as soon as possible. Those who are in the queue with the various provincial nominee programs that are waiting for your application to be processed, if your jobs are no longer there, the ability for you to demonstrate that you can economically establish in Canada, which is a pillar, a critical aspect of your permanent residence, could be completely undermined. And it could impact on your permanent resident status and your ability to become a landed permanent resident, even though you started working, you've spent your life in that province. If you no longer have a job, understand that could cause huge issues for you. And it's a reality, whether you're in Alberta, BC, Nova Scotia, whatever province. So be aware of that. I could create a whole video on all of this. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully you understand the realities of the situation. But there's going to be a lot of fear mongers out there who say, don't apply to express entry. You're not going to get a job, blah, 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 blah. Well, they can take a hike, because those of you who are willing to stick it out, who are willing to be patient, once you get in the queue, once you have your EAPR application filed, then you are 9/10 of the way there. Yes, things might delay. Yes, things might stall. But your applications are not just going to get tossed out. You're going to have the opportunity to complete your landing, because the federal government values immigrants, and even their targets of whatever it is, 1 million in the next 3 years, that target is going to be really hard for them to meet because of the lack of processing of overseas applications. So understand, everybody, continue to get your applications in. There is no harm in getting that profile in unless you are planning to come as a student or a worker. Then that's a whole different discussion, and I'm not going to get into it, but you have to still be able to demonstrate temporary intent. So in those circumstances, you may consider holding off if you don't think you're going to get an ITA. For those of you who are waiting to see what's going to happen, the days of being pulled out based on your occupation, based on labor shortages in provinces, there's going to be a little bit of a blip here. But you just don't know what the governments are going to do. The OINP just issued a bunch of notifications of interest because I have clients that were submitting those applications. So not every province is the same. But with all of this being said, understand that it is still possible for foreign workers to come to Canada, and it is one of the best ways if you do not have super high human capital that's right off the charts, you still have the ability of coming that way if Canadian employers can demonstrate there's no Canadian or permanent resident who's available, has the skill sets to do the job that you want to fill, right? So there we go. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, just giving you a little bit of an update on where things are at with Canada, with the foreign worker program, and with what's happening in the provincial nominee program. So we'll stay up to date. A little bit longer than I intended, but super important for you guys to understand this stuff. Now, as we transition, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that have posted questions, and I appreciate that. You can now start to post your questions if you like. I'm going to go through. I'm not going to choose chronologically because I'm going to choose the questions that I think are going to be the most usefulness to everybody here. Understand, when we have right now we've got about 153 people watching this live. Well, two videos that I did ago, there were over 16,000 people that ultimately watched it. So the most important thing for me is that the questions that I answer are the most benefit and that give the most help to the most people. So if I haven't answered your question, it may be because it's this. Something that would be considered more specific, that would require an actual legal immigration consultation with me, an immigration lawyer. So don't get upset if I haven't answered your question. That may be why I skipped past it, but you can start to post. Now, I want to show you guys something here because obviously I'm in my office now. No longer am I riding my bike across the river. No longer am I getting that exercise benefit that I was forced to get before. When the kids had our two vehicles going to school and going different directions, I rode my bike out of necessity, but that's not there. So like most of you, we've been home. Coronavirus has not been good to me in terms of the actual weight I've been putting on. But I want to give a big shout out right here, and I'm going to flip it over right here to Ahmed. And Ahmed has been a good friend. He says, you're doing awesome. He's been giving me a little bits of advice. You can see right here on this, if I flip back to this page here, you can see that I don't have a bunch of ads on here. That is because Ahmed gave me this little tip. He said, you're doing an awesome job. Just watched your latest video after the US H-1B, which was where I talked about the problems with the US blocking all foreign workers. You often visit Chrome during videos, and I see all of these weird ads on the sites. Here's a little tip. Use uBlock Origin Chrome extension, just search and install. And that's exactly what I have on here right now. And so it did remove all the ads and everything on the site, which was awesome. So big shout out. But this last paragraph is the best part of all. He said, I hope you're all right. Felt like you put on some weight. Don't forget to exercise. So there's my answer. I went for a bike ride last night. Thanks for the tips and the shout out about my fatness. Absolutely. So like all of you, I am recommitted now to getting out, to getting some exercise. I'm looking at hiring another lawyer to join our team so that I can have a little bit more, well, at least some kind of a break. But I just had to give Ahmed a shout out because that was awesome. I love people who are not afraid to be honest. And without a doubt, I'm probably like 40 pounds heavier than I was 2 years when I started doing these videos. I just love to eat. Okay. Enough of that. Now it's time to get to the questions. Okay, so let's start picking some good questions from all of you amazing folks. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay, so Dill says, can you please mention the PNP options only for international students or onshore applicants? Okay, so Dill, this is a question that's actually impossible for me to answer because every province has different rules and different requirements. And when people have questions about this, when they're an international student and they're trying to figure out what options are available to them, it really requires one of these, which is, I need to know a whole lot more about you. I need to know about your work history, your education, which province you're in, how long your postgrad work permit is going to be valid for. Then we take immigration like a buffet. It's not quite the all-you-can-eat buffet it used to be. We pick and choose the provinces. We pick and choose the programs that might be available to you. What is your work situation? All of that. And so it's not possible for me to answer that in this type of a live Q&A. Okay, Leoncio de Oliveira from Brazil. Olá, Leoncido. Muito bem de velo. Okay, let's see here. Okay, this one says, my question is for the financial requirements for express entry. Perfect. Some of us have lost jobs due to COVID. Yes. Okay. Understand that if you're in Canada and you have applied through, if you're in Canada and you've got a CEC application in the queue through the Canadian Experience class, understand that you are actually exempt from the proof of funds. So you don't have to worry about it. But for those of you, if this Facebook user is outside of Canada, then understand Canada doesn't have any mercy for it. If you've lost your job, if you don't have those funds, you're just not going to be able to immigrate. Canada needs to make sure that you can economically establish yourself. And even more so now than really in at any time within immigration, they need to know that you're going to be able to carry yourself if you are granted entry to Canada and you're landed as a permanent resident. It may be a few months before you're able to get a job. And so even more so than ever are those funds important. Okay. Ralph actually asks a good question here. He says, where can you find labor rights for Canada? Every province has employment standards and they're wonderful. So for you, Ralph, all you need to do is to type in Alberta employment standards, and there's even officers, liaison officers, that can help to advise you and direct you if you're having problems with your employer, if they're not following the employment standards code. That's one of the wonderful things about Canada. But the problem is many foreign workers don't understand their rights, or they have employers who are exercising control over them and basically extorting them, saying, if you don't work these extra hours at regular time, instead of me paying you overtime, which should be at least time and a half, I'm going to lay you off. I'm going to send you home. And so then people feel trapped. And I've seen that so much. But knowing the employment standards code, knowing the rights that you have, reaching out to Alberta employment standards, or each province has their own organization, is the best way for you to go. All right, let's see what we have here. Okay. All right. Okay. Gorgesh says, as the English tests are starting in Canada, do you think CEC scores will go up? I actually don't think so. Because the reality is people that are applying, there's only so many people in Canada that are in a position to show that they have 1 year of skilled work experience. And if people who are laid off are not able to work, then many of them have lost these 2 or 3 months that we've had to self-isolate in Canada. So what normally would be filling the coffers of new profiles in the express entry pool under the CEC program, they're not able to do that in many cases because they haven't yet reached the 1 year. So that's what's causing the CEC to continue to drop. So yes, with the English tests, it may result in somewhat of a slowdown in that drop. But I think it's still going to go down just because of the realities of people not being able to work. And immigration is not allowing people to just say, okay, I was only not working because of Corona, because of the coronavirus. What they're going to say is, were you actually working full time, at least 30 hours a week, or part time, if that's what you're counting, 15 hours a week? Were you paid? And in many cases, people were laid off. And so I don't think it's going to have as big of an impact right now. I think the issue, at least for the program generally, is the travel restrictions. And so we know until July 31st, they're not going to be lifted. And so I personally don't think there's going to be another federal skilled worker draw until those travel restrictions are lifted. Okay, Donia says, do you provide a work permit? Nope, I don't connect employers with foreign workers. I do help in preparing the LMIA for companies and in helping you to file your work permit, but I don't find jobs. Taryn Preet says, can CC score go down 422 in July? Entirely possible. It could just do that, Taryn Preet. Okay, what does the ban mean for New Brunswick PNP provincial nominees with job offers? Understand that ban in New Brunswick was purely related to the coronavirus. And so it didn't have any impact on applications. But in your case here, you have to understand Masood, if you're actually in New Brunswick, then the reality, let's see here. The reality for you is that you're going to have to pay close attention to what the province is doing. If your work is no longer there, then it could impact on your provincial nomination if you're actually working. Yep, and here I'll even give Lionel here a shout out. He says, not as easy as it sounds so. No, it's not as easy. That's why I exist. That's why immigration lawyers exist. And I honestly, why I do all of this is because I believe that you guys have a right to access an immigration lawyer to help you. Like, it's called access to justice. The reason I do this is because I feel you have a right to. It's not just for elite people, but it's for everybody. And so that is my mission. That's the mission of Healthy Immigration Law, is to make our services attainable and accessible to everybody out there. And it's not just the service. That's why I've created the DIY course, the Express Entry Do-It-Yourself course. And I don't do a good job of promoting it, but understand that's why it's there. It's to help people, to help explain how the work permit process works, how you can know if your occupation is in demand, how you can know if there are shortages in certain provinces that you should be targeting. So all on the work permit front, all of that is built into my Express Entry DIY course. And I've shared this with you guys a lot in the past, and I'll just pull it up quick again. Now's as good time as any, because those of you who are watching this and are waiting to get your questions answered, you may not know about this because usually you don't stick around long enough to wait. But if you go in here and you go to the course and you actually click on Purchase Now, this course, which is chock full of information, if you type in right here, and I've had some people purchase it at full price because they didn't watch the video. But those of you who are watching the video and you click apply after typing in EEDIY 50, you get 50% off. So you get the full course for only $250 US, a fraction of what you're paying your overseas agents to basically screw up your lives. You can figure it out yourself. And if you have specific questions, then book a consult with me. And I can answer most of those questions in as little, and if I type in here, actually, if you go to Healthy Law and you just click on, and I'll just take you off of here, Lionel. If you go here to my site, click on Start Here, that is where you can book a consult with me, and we'll get you in as soon as we can. It's all about responding to you as fast as we can. I can't compete quite with Amazon, but I can sure come close. And so when people request a consult, we do everything we can to respond as quickly as possible. But this right here, guys, this Express Entry Do-It-Yourself course, this was created for you. This is created for individuals like Lionel, who recognize it's not easy, but because of the coronavirus, because of layoffs, may not have the same resources available to them. But that's why it's there. Okay, let's take a look at some more here. Keep cruising on. Okay, Mohammed says here, I have a PhD and 2 years experience, one from abroad, one here in Pakistan. Is it possible to get maximum marks for work experience, taking PhD years as work experience into account? Well, this is one of the classic questions, and it's a really good one, Mohammed. What he's really asking is, can you count your work experience that was accumulated while you were attending or completing your PhD? The answer is yes, if you meet all of the other requirements, that it was paid. And I'm actually going to shift over here, Lionel. I'm going to shift back here because it's a great question. And I'm going to just remove you from here, the screen. If you go back here and we type in Federal Skilled Worker Program eligibility, regardless of whether or not you're attending school full-time or otherwise, as long as you can prove that you actually met these requirements, that you, as we go to skilled work experience, that it was in a skilled position, 0A or B, that you have performed all of the activities in the lead statement, and it says all essential duties. Well, the regulations say a substantial number of the main duties, which is about 70%, maybe a little higher if you were to give it a percentage. That it was in the same job just to meet the initial qualification, that the position that you're doing the work for, that you were paid, that it was in the last 10 years, and that it was continuous for at least 30 hours a week, full time. As long as you can establish that, if you were doing your PhD at the same time and the work experience you were getting paid for was built into your PhD, the immigration regulations do not prohibit that from outside of Canada. If you're inside Canada, yes, you can't count that as Canadian work experience. You can't. If you're on a study permit, you can't. But if you're outside of Canada, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, as long as you're meeting these requirements right here for the federal program, okay? If anyone has received a refusal from immigration because they claim the person should not have been granted that work experience because they were studying, and I just did a consult with someone who requested the GCMS notes, and it was directed for further review by the intake officer to someone else to look at. Now, I hope that that more advanced officer will notify the intake person that no, that only applies in Canada. But the GCMS notes seem to indicate that that person may be losing work history. So if you had your application refused because of that, that's a judicial review. I would take that. I would file a leave application to federal court to challenge that decision because it's wrong in law. It's just an error in law, which is a reviewable error. And I can tell you, it wouldn't even go to federal court. It would go to the Department of Justice lawyer, who would then say, yeah, Mark, you're right. That's an error in law. It's not correct. And they would send it back to be reconsidered by another officer. That's why you hire an immigration lawyer, because we do those things for you. We don't just say, oh, that's too bad they refused, maybe try to resubmit. That's stupid. If the officers are not perfect, they make mistakes too. And that's what we do as immigration lawyers. We help you to make sure that your application is treated fairly in accordance with principles of natural justice. All right. Okay, enough chatting about that one. All right, let's shift back here. And we're going to go to our next question. Okay, we're going to zip down through here. Okay. Okay, here's a good one from Angie. She says, I have a skilled job claiming points for and part-time job grocery store. Is it okay to have two ongoing activities in the personal history? Absolutely. If some of my clients have multiple part-time jobs, and you're right, you claim it in your personal history. And if it's overlapping time, no problem at all. When it comes to work history, you can actually have two work histories that are overlapping as long as they meet the requirements of the federal skilled worker program that I've showed here. Okay, so yes, the short answer is yes. Good question. Okay. Okay, Kiran says, job offer with LMIA, NOC B, 3 years experience, trying to apply, but IELTS suspended. Slowly, it's being released, my friend. Keep watching. Hopefully in your country, it will allow you to apply, but that's a country-specific situation. Okay, another question about CEC. Can it go down in July 422? I think it very well could. Let's take a quick peek at where we're at, guys, okay? So if we go here, EE draws, rounds of invitations, I'll just pull this up, and you guys can see my screen. I think we'll pull this up, see if it's big enough for everybody to see. I'm gonna just block you off, Termpreet. Okay, so let's take a look at this, okay? So if we look, the last round of invitation was issued at 4/31, okay? So there were 3,508 invitations issued. What that means is they probably just took everybody that was at 4/31 and didn't actually worry too much of the tiebreaker. I'll bet this April 3rd, 2020, you can see just recently that person submitted their profile. And so on June the 25th, right there, 431 was the total. If we go down, you can see as of just before that draw, if we go down into the 420s right here, you can see there's still a lot of people. So we know that 421 to 430, that period, we have 7,332 people that have not yet been drawn. And understand these are every bit as much federal skilled worker as they are CEC. So if they do a CEC draw, probably a smaller portion of these 7,332 are CEC. And so at 431, I think they basically took all the CECs out of here, and that the remaining 9,600 or however many there were are probably FSW candidates. So at 421 to 430, I think it's entirely possible. And your question here, Termpreet, was, if we put it up here, it was 422, you were wondering. It may not happen on this draw, but if they have multiple draws in July, it's entirely possible that it could drop down to that level, because we don't know exactly how many of these ones are CECs. But I have to assume that it's a smaller percentage. Why? Because you're getting a lot of points. after you've accumulated 1 year of skilled work experience. And in many cases, you guys that have completed 1 year are often postgrads who also have the either 15 or 30 additional points for study. And you're usually fairly young. So that's part of the situation. That's my thoughts on that, Terampri. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Okay. Okay, this is a good one right here. A deal. I'll just do that and then I'll ring the bell. This is legal advice. So I'm actually going to stop the legal advice tracker on the bottom here. But if you need to understand that when you ask something that says, hey, do I qualify? What's the best knock? Understand, for sales jobs, determining which is the best knock, it's not that simple. Why? Because we're looking at the duties, and not just any duty. I want to know exactly what you did. And a large portion of the consultations that I do here on my via this link right here on my website, Adil, are designed to answer this specific question for my clients. What is the proper knock? But it all starts, my friend, from your job description. Okay, we're covering pretty good here. We're making some good time. I'm actually quite happy with this. Okay, let's see where we're at now as we're moving forward. Okay. Let's jump into Lionel here. He says, very good video, my friend. Very good video. For those of us that are out of Canada, there are a lot of terms I cannot understand. Applications in. I'm in the process of international student. I understand that. There really is. And lots of times people will make reference to EAPR or ITA, profile, the rounds of invitations, CRS. All these different acronyms are sometimes very confusing. Once again, that is why I created the Express Entry DIY course. I demystify all of that. And guys, if you understood even a fraction of the time that I took to build this thing, you know, I even had clients who agreed to allow me, if I go back here, to allow me to use their EAPR. And then I went in and actually had to redact all of the information that they had in there so that none of their confidential information was visible. But right from the beginning, learning the basics, that's what it's all about, my friend. So I'll pull you off of here, but that's what it's all about. Welcome. How does it work? What is it? How is the comprehensive ranking system? Do you know what? I'm going to tell you guys something. I'm going to make this entire module 1 free. I'm going to figure out a way to make it free. And you can go in and you can see what it is. And in all honesty, if I look at this, let's see, preparing to submit your Express Entry profile, there is tons of information in here. But I think I may make this free too. I think I'm going to make the first 2 modules free going forward, and I'm going to promote it. So Igor, remind me about this, because at the end of the day, I truly want you guys to understand that this is not just about some money-grubbing immigration lawyer who wants to line his pockets with money. If I wanted to do that, I would have stayed at the national firm. I would have stayed an M&A lawyer, mergers and acquisitions, international law. I would have done that. That's where I originally wanted to go. But I fell in love with immigration because of you. I fell in love with the difference I could actually make in people's lives. And do I want to make money? Do I want to be able to provide for my family? Yes, of course I do. But understand, my primary motivation for doing all of this is to genuinely help people. And it blows my mind when I have the ability to reach thousands of people with these videos. When I answer one question, there might be 1,000 people that also benefit from it. And what's the skin off my back? Nothing. It's just answering the question. And if it helps you to avoid the pitfall of getting your application refused, if it helps you to have the ability to not get your application rejected and lose forever your opportunity just because of one simple little mistake, that's why I created this. And so these first 2 modules, Igor, make a note of it. I'm going to figure out a way to make these free. And I'm not quite sure exactly how I'm going to do that because this course is kind of rigid in terms of how it's offered. And then you can go in and you can see what's in here because I spent thousands. Oh my goodness. If I think about how many hours that I've spent over the last 3 or 4 years since I created it, revising, updating, like it probably is almost 1,000 hours. And you can see here, completing the profile, completing the EAPR forms, all of this. I really should do a better job of explaining to you guys what's in here. But all of this, like take the principal applicant work history section. I literally walk you through the whole process here. I'll pause this. I walk you through the whole process exactly as it is in your portal. So once again, I'm just going to give you guys that reminder. When you're going through this process, and I'm going to go back to the Canadian Immigration Institute, those of you who are tuning in just now, all you have to do is go here, go to see our courses, go to the DIY guide. I also have one for LMIAs. If you've got an employer who doesn't know how to do the process, I created it specifically for employers so that they could do it and get that job offer for you. But anyways, if you click on purchase now right here, and then you type in EEDIY50, that's what it is, EEDIY50, and click apply, you will get 50% off, and it's $250 US. And I can tell you, it is chock full of everything that I'm teaching you here in a systematic way that a 12-year-old could do. Literally, that's how simple I've made it. But don't be deceived. It might be simple because I put it in a way that people can understand, but it is not some generic, easy to understand thing. Sometimes I'll get people who will purchase it, and then they'll say to me, oh, Mark, this information is all already in there. Understand, it is not. And the reason that I can say that it is not, I should say, this information that I have in there is not just stuff that's commonly available all over the internet, is because of, I'll just go back in here to my library. It's because of the resource section. And often people are too lazy to actually go down and look at the resource section and see that this is where all of the specific, really detailed information that might only relate to 5 or 10% of the people who purchase the course, I put it here so that people don't have to watch a video that's 4 hours long explaining every possible permutation of work histories. For example, people said, can you provide more information on self-employed? Well, that's what this whole link is right here. How do I prove work experience if I'm self-employed? So these are individual things. How to improve my language test. How do I increase my chances of being eligible? All of this is here. Okay. I'm sorry I get carried away sometimes, but understand it's because I'm passionate about this, and this guide is worth so much. I know it is. There's been so many people that benefited from it, but there's just this distrust. People think, oh, Mark's charging $497 for that. Well, people are paying that right now because they recognize the worth of it. But for you who come and watch this video, who sit and wait patiently for your question to be answered, this is the reward that I give you, 50% off. All right, let's leave it. Let's jump back. Let's get to some more questions. I know that I do have consultations. 4. I take 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. Okay, there we go. Yay. And they're all backed up, scheduled to start in about 6 minutes. So I'm going to go 5 more minutes firing through answering more questions. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, here we go. This is a good one. Arvind says, I submitted my APR. I just found out one of my part-time jobs date ranges in the personal history is slightly off by 2 months. Will this be an issue? It could create a question if your address history doesn't match up with your personal history. And when they're confused, what happens? They then have a choice. Usually they'll send a fairness letter asking you, how do you want to deal with this? And I'm going to try to pull myself over here a little bit, and maybe I'll just push this back. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, what am I doing to my screen here? Can I fix this? That's the question. What have I done? Oh, dang. Okay, maybe it's here. Okay, will that fix it? Sorry, guys. This is what happens when you're trying to be helpful, and now I've messed it up. Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to take that off. Maybe that will be the last question for today till I can figure this out again. I think I did mess it up. Let's see. Did I mess it up? Yeah, I did. Oh, man. Okay. Ugh. Okay, the reality is certain things will result in misrepresentation if they're considered to be a material misrepresentation. Something like that is probably not going to result in a misrepresentation finding. But if you have address histories that are not lined up properly, it could have a ripple effect with whether or not they are accepting of other information that you have. Okay? All right, I am sorry, guys, but I'm going to have to wrap up today. I wish that I could fix this. Let me just try one more way and see if I can figure out how I can fix this oh, good. I was able to fix it. Okay. Bear with me, folks, as I'm trying to make this work for everyone. I apologize. Oh, okay. Now let's try to push this back just a little bit. there. I think people can kind of see that now. Okay, we'll leave that. Okay, it's not as bad. Not as bad. Okay, so here, is there any way to go to Canada through refugee program? Okay, yeah, understand the refugee is probably, it all comes down to the UNHCR, which is basically the United Nations organization that oversees the placement of refugees. And that's a whole different discussion, a whole different website. It is not, really, to be a government-sponsored refugee is not an easy process. And you'd have to be in a position where you were really, truly almost in a refugee camp to be identified, and that takes years. A lot of that has been suspended right now because of the pandemic. So it's actually not an advantage to you. Okay, we can get to a few more here. I'm going to jump down, and I know lots of people have been posting questions here. Let's see if we can get to some good ones. Okay, so here, this person said, it said on the requirements that we should be on a job for a year. If I change for jobs, does it impact? Maybe I did understand wrong. Okay, so this is Catherine from Peru. Understand you have to work for continuously 1 year as the base minimum. If you've worked for 1 year skilled full-time work experience that's paid, then you can meet the minimum, just the minimum eligibility. But if you switch between jobs before you've met that continuous full-time, when you are outside of Canada, then yeah, you won't be able to meet the requirements. If you're inside Canada, you can use little bits and pieces to add together to make that full 1 year. That's the difference between the Canadian Experience class. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Is it possible that IRC will stop working on ANP applications after the Premier Kenney announced how many new immigrants affected the employment level in Alberta? I personally don't think that is the case. They're not going to do that. But they are going to potentially reduce the number of nominations, new nominations that they issue. Great question. Okay. Okay. This one says, what's my prediction for the FSW? My prediction is going to be over 480. That's what I think once it lifts. I'm almost positive it's going to be over 480. Okay. Let's see here if we can pull up some other ones. Okay, so this person, Lauren, says, hey, I'm a provincial nominee Outland, about to send my paper application. I just got invited to CEC Express Entry in the last draw. Can I apply for EE before at the same time as the paper? Yes, you can. Do it. Submit them both. I advise my clients on how to navigate the complexities of that all the time. And so, Lauren, yes, you can, and I encourage you to do that. You have to be a little bit careful how you answer questions and how you advise immigration, but without a doubt, you can do it. Okay. If you need any help with that, Lauren, don't hesitate to reach out, book a consult. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I wasn't able to get to as many questions today, but it was really important that I explained what is going on with immigration these days. It's just about up, so I'm going to sign off and say we'll see you on Thursday. Okay, if you weren't able to get it today, then Thursday. And also, if you weren't able to get your question answered and it's something that's specific that would, result in me doing that because it's legal advice, book a consult. I can help you. Mark Holthe, that's my name. Canadian immigration lawyer is what I do. And I'm a former immigration officer and I was a former high school teacher, which kind of blends all this into really making a perfect fit for doing what I do. All right, take care, everybody. Stay safe and well. And we'll see how this crazy world of immigration continues into the future. See you later.